And I could talk much longer, but I want to give you guys a chance to ask some questions and maybe ask some.
Well, first of all, round of applause. Thank you very much. That is so cool. Some of the stories you've relayed. You said 12,000 doors you've knocked?
Yeah, just under that right now.
That's good. Do you just blindly pick a neighborhood and go?
No, not at all. So it's maybe a surprise, it may not be a surprise to you guys at all, but both parties have databases of voters. And so in the state of Missouri, you do not have to register as Democrat or Republican or Independent. You can pick up whatever ballot you want. And so your voter information is open to a certain extent. Like, nobody knows who you vote for. But if you're a registered voter, I can type your name into this database and find out how often you vote. I can find out what district you live in. And then there's some scoring mechanisms that both parties do. And so maybe you fill out a questionnaire online about a specific issue, that information gets sent into a database. And so I was running a Democratic primary, and in Missouri, when you pick up your ballot on primary day, you have to say Democrat or Republican and pick up a ballot. Sometimes people flock to try to influence votes and crazy things like that. But I knew that I had to find people who were willing in Southwest Missouri to say I'm a Democrat, which is not a whole lot of people. And in my area, it is a Democratic seat. It is the only one in all of Southwest Missouri, south of Kansas City. This is the only district that a Democrat currently holds. So I targeted people who pick up Democratic ballots and who vote often. Primary turnout in my election was 13%. I won with 901 votes, which is crazy to think about how few people, 34,000 people, and we had 13% of them show up.
That's still, I really want to stress that. That is you won in a landslide.
I did.
You won in a landslide.
2-1.
The landslide was 900 votes.
Yes.
Did anybody tell you, I know we've kind of already talked about this before, anybody tells you your vote doesn't count, you know, Mrs. Quade will be the first to tell you that is a lie.
And I'll let's go back to 2010. So our current state rep, Charlie Moore, he actually lost his election, so he had served for 2 terms. He lost his election by 211 votes.
211.
That's a dormitory on Missouri State. And so, yes, you may not feel like your vote matters on a national level. There's a lot of stuff going on right now in the presidential super delegates and all that stuff. Let's not talk about that. On a local level, 211 votes were decided between the next 2 years of who represented the community. And in my election, it was 2-1, but the Republican election, 15 votes decided which one of them was going to face off against me. So your vote truly does matter. And in a place like this, we've got a lot of transiency, we've got a lot of low-income people, we have a lot of students who don't change their voter registration. It's super easy, it takes 30 seconds, but 13%. We're hoping for the presidential that it'll be 20. So to your point, yes. So I targeted Democrats who vote often. So that means that I did not go every house. That means I might get 3 houses on the street, which is a lot of steps, a lot more than I had anticipated it would be. But we ended up talking, verbally having conversations with over 800 people. I had 800 people say they were going to vote for me. So we ended up talking to about 1,400 people over the whole course of the campaign by door knocks. We did phone calling and we did mail pieces and all that other stuff too.
That's great. And one other thing that you brought up, you brushed over, and I really wanted to hear more about it because we're having these conversations right now in class. You said you grew up in a very conservative family.
Yes.
Over time, you've sort of evolved. I assume your evolution will continue for the rest of your life.
Yes.
But what was there a moment? Was it gradual?
I think it was very gradual. So, my dad, to give you an example, my stepfather is a Ted Cruz supporter, and we don't agree on a whole lot. But we do agree on compromises, So I'm a huge LGBT rights activist, and I will not shy away from that. And my father is very much against gay marriage. And, we've had dialogues and came to an agreement on, we both were like, you know what, let's just not have government call it marriage. Because the difference for him was marriage is a religious thing and that should be protected for man and woman, and he has that right to believe that. For me, it's like, well, they aren't getting tax credits that my husband and I get and our children receive, and that's a huge problem for me. And so his solution, and I agree, was like, okay, let's just change the title, and let's have government marriage, and then we have religious marriage, and call them 2 separate things. Okay. There's a lot of compromises that I think we can find, and I think there's value in coming from the background that came from and the evolution. But to your question, really for me, I think it's more about the social stuff. I tend to be more fiscally conservative and understand the fiscal responsibility and balanced budget state like Missouri that we have. And it's think we've got a lot of solutions for that, but I think it was an overtime thing for me. A lot of it tends to be more the clients that I've served and the people that I've talked to who tend to be low income have changed my mind on a lot of things. But I think that our two-party system right now, even though I identify as a Democrat, is very out of date and very out of touch with the way that most of us feel. I think that you can talk to anybody and find things that you agree on and things you disagree on. And too often we just say, I'm a Democrat, I'm only going to vote for Democratic candidates. I've voted for Republicans, and I still do. Roseanne Bentley, a Greene County Commissioner, has been a Republican her whole life, and I love that woman, and I think she is fabulous, and I voted for her every time. For me, it's about people and the individual that I'm voting for. But unfortunately, the way our current system is set up, just like the amount of money you have to raise to run a race, you have to pick a side. If you look at independents who run, they don't get anywhere. And I'm a firm believer in making change from the inside out. I don't necessarily think that this yelling, and I mean, I've gone to protests, I've done all that stuff, but I don't think that that really gets where we want to be when it comes to government. And so that's why I'm trying to do it from the inside and build those bridges and find those compromises with people across the aisle so that we can actually find some middle ground that makes sense and moves us forward.
Great. And you said you've been, more or less, you were kind of inspired to pursue this since you were, what, 19 or 20?
Yeah.
That's great. That's a whole adulthood, essentially.
Yeah, we planned the
That's
birth
great.
of our daughter around this election.
All right. So at this point,
Yes.
so at
We're
this,
dedicated.
so at this point, you can go ahead. If anybody has any questions for Mrs. Quade, I encourage you to raise your hand, and we'll have Mrs. Quade determine your questions.
As a running state representative, more especially in Missouri, racial and police citizen confrontation continues to skyrocket, leaving our state marked in history for one of the most passionate, disastrous riots over racial inequality. The death of Michael Brown and the riot at Ferguson. How do you plan on addressing this matter and with high hopes increasing crime on both sides?
Yeah, I think it's a great question and it's something that we need to be talking about more. I'm going to try to make this a short answer, but I think that it's hard to answer that short because the cultural problems that we have right now is not a 30-second answer. And I think that that's step one, is that if we all realize that no matter which side of this issue you're on, there's so much history and so much personal belief in this that it needs to be a dialogue. First step in terms of government and things that I can do, the Fraternal Order of Police also are on board with this, and that's body cameras. I think that that protects both police and citizens. I am a firm backer of the police, of course, but I also think that in every profession, there's not everybody's going to be great. Something like body camera protects the police officers and makes their stories be relevant and have evidence for that, but then it also protects citizens. I think that's a first step that we can do in that regard. It can get very heated. I'm sure that you may have seen yesterday's veto session. They passed a law that opens. We no longer have to have concealed carry permits or background checks for handling guns in the next 30 days. That will change, and that was a law passed yesterday. The Fraternal Order of Police and the Chief Police Officers Association were not completely in favor of that, and I think that that's a place where we need to be having dialogue with police officers, but then also citizens. Citizens are scared right now, and they want to be able to carry guns and to protect their families. My father is a hunter. I grew up with loaded guns on the wall. I am a firm believer in protecting those rights, but again, it's about finding that middle ground and listening to the professionals in the field. Then also listening to the people. My nonprofit works with schools right outside of Ferguson. We're in Hazelwood, and so I spend a lot of time up there. People are frustrated. Talking about Ferguson specifically, there was not a single school administrator or police officer that is a person of color. And that is a big deal when you're talking about authority, right? We want authority to look like us and to represent us. And St. Louis is super convoluted, but there are 86 or 68 municipalities in the city of St. Louis. That's that many police organizations with the chief of police, mayors, city council, all in that region. A lot of people don't realize that. And so if you're a police officer trying to get a job, you apply to 68 different places because that's how many departments there are. That's a very convoluted structure up there and a very outdated structure that a lot of people, I think, doesn't know that that's happening. So I think that it's about progress, moving things forward, and then again, finding that middle ground that protects both sides. And I think that there is a lot that can be done there.
Let's get a couple more questions. Crystal, your answers are so full. Let's just, we get a couple more questions and maybe cut it down to a minute. Any further questions, please?
Yeah.
So you said that you help like kids get meals for their families. Like, is there any other like foundations that support you? Or
Yeah, actually, what I love about our foundation is we partner with everybody else. And so essentially what we do is I go into a new community like Ava. Let's pick Ava. Anybody here from Ava? We just started in Ava. Super small town outside Springfield. And we go into a community, they say we need help with our children because our children are suffering. So we go in and we say, okay, what do you got? Is the Food Harvest doing backpack programs right now full of food for the weekend? Do you have a church that is doing a great coat drive? You know, what do you have? And then we come in and see what organizations are doing what, and then we fill in those gaps and then work with those organizations. And so some communities have nothing, and so we do food, medicine, hygiene items, doctor's visits, all of that. Some have great programs already going, and we just fill in or raise money specifically for that organization.
because the Army that I work at, we're doing like that No Younger thing, and
Yeah.
I was wondering that helps. Support.
Yeah, it does. And so the best way to think about that is if say your money's going to Ozarks Food Harvest, then that allows our money to go over here and buy buses. You know, so yeah, we work really closely with all the other nonprofits and faith-based organizations in the community to just make sure that we're covering everything. So,
That's pretty cool. One more question. We'll give her one more question.
I guess this is kind of too, but you said in your website, you want to create wages that make sense.
yes.
How much do you think?
I don't believe, and Democrats may shoot me for this, I don't believe that we should just have a standard minimum wage across the country. I don't believe in that. You know, a lot of people are fighting for 5 to 15. That's a big thing right now. That makes sense to me in places where the cost of living is super high. In Springfield right now, the cost of living is one of the lowest in the entire country. But I can tell you as a former waitress, I waited tables forever, it's very hard to live on $7.50 an hour. And so I think here at $12, give or take, makes sense. But I think that we also need to look at doing, if whatever changes we make should be over time. My husband is a small business, and I understand the implications of small business owners to just go from this to this. But when I say makes sense, the number one spender in the country is low-income people. Studies show that people of wealth save their money and they don't buy a lot of things. They buy big things, but they don't buy frequently. And our low-income folks buy things every day. They're constantly purchasing things. And so if we make their wages more sustainable, it actually helps the economy much more because they're spending it, and then there's tax revenue that goes back into it. So I think it should be a slow progression, like I said, but I don't necessarily believe that we need it universal across the country.
We'll call it now. We can go on and on. I'm sure I'd love to, but
I'm happy to.
if you have any further questions, website.
Yeah, it's just my name, crystalquade.com. It's Quade. I have Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all the things that you're supposed to do as a political candidate.
crystalquade.com. Please visit that if you want to learn more about Crystal and contact her directly. You got it.